would like to summarize the course, to remind and refresh the different concepts that we mentioned, to recollect them, and also to say goodbye. So this is a course about the unknown in psychotherapy and Bion's conceptual line. It is about the art of keeping the unknown alive and present in treatment, or psychotherapy, and in parallel about teaching Bion's language and extensions that were made to Bion. In addition, I try to enrich the course using examples and stories related to different spiritual traditions. We began with the link between the unknown and the truth. The truth as something that nurtures us, and the importance that Bion gave to contact with truth as a vital developmental necessity. We need contact with truth, and contact with truth implies the ability to be in contact with the unknown. From there, we went to his quote, apparently the most famous one, that the therapist must be present in the office without memory or desire. Through this quote, we got to know K and O, transformations in K, transformations in O, and we said that part of the requirement of Bion's recommendation in the context of without memory or desire was to promote and get closer to transformations in O, to get closer and unite with O, with the flow of O. We also discussed faith, leaps of faith, and the infinite movement PSD. At the end of this class, we met Carlos Castaneda and his teacher Don Juan, who told Castaneda about his fabulous encounter with a magical deer. In the following meeting, we discussed the ability to tolerate frustration and the immense importance that Bion attached to it. Using this concept, we entered the art of not knowing from another axis, a child development one. Through the ability to tolerate frustration, we spoke of the domain of beta elements, alpha function, and alpha elements. I brought the image of the small room with the crucible, the furnace boiler into which different metals are thrown, and whether it had the capacity to melt them or not. If they were thrown out, we were talking about projective identification, throwing out with the hope that the crucibles outside might return them molten and sufficiently processed. We also mentioned containment failures and their results, nameless dread and bizarre objects. From there, we moved to the theme of container contained. We got to know Bion's model and understood that meaning always depends on an adequate interaction between two elements. Using Britton's article, Keeping Things in Mind, we met the concepts of sanctuary and meaning. In addition, we discussed various possibilities of evacuating beta elements through hallucinations, through somatization, and also through acting out. We continued discussing beta elements and what happens when a baby receives a notion about a world that did not want to know and did not want to be known. About a baby that cannot know and cannot inform. The communication between it and itself and between it and the world is troubled. In this context, we also discussed the obscure relationships between impenetrability and violence, when the mother is impenetrable and does not allow the child's anguish to enter, and the child exaggerates its efforts and becomes violent. Then we talked about dreaming. We said that dreaming was more than an extension of alpha function because it not only brings together and processes beta elements, but also constructs the mind. We said that dreaming, in Bion's language, is a deep process which works continuously in the background. A processing process that also constructs a contact barrier between the conscious and the unconscious that simultaneously connects them. In this context, I spoke of Ogden's concept, dreaming into existence, which helps us understand that the act of dreaming also allows to feel real and present. We also mentioned the difference between terrors and nightmares that, despite being bad dreams, contain psychological processing. In this class, I made different additions related to witnessing and envisioning, how witnessing potentials can help those potentials materialize. I also said that it includes surrendering to a part that is larger than me, and that in its contact with parts that are not yet me, something in the alchemical encounter between them generates the experience of self. In addition, I mentioned Ken Wilber's Gray Chain of Being model and Jacob's dream. From the domain of dreaming, I went to the world of eigen and impact. I talked about eigen singularity of writing and thinking, and about this special concept called impact, derived from the phrase self-to-self impact is the core of clinical work. That is to say, the core of clinical work is the impact of oneself on another self. I explained Eigen's recommendation to be in contact with the patient's essential somatic signature and allow this frequency to enter and vibrate in us, and how significant it is for the patient and for fundamental transformation processes. From there, we returned to Bion's more abstract conceptualizations, to the concepts of Caesura and the no thing. In Caesura, we found the quality of withstanding the tension between opposites without collapsing towards any of them. In the no thing, there's the ability to be in contact with the always present frustration, which implies the encounter with the incomplete, the deficient, the unexpected, the unknown, and the emergent. I hope that the classes were transmitted in a clear way and that they allowed you to delve into Bion's concepts and feel something of his spirit. Within our offices, both in private care and in public care, we are under pressure to provide results. It is very strong in public care, providing results all the time. There are even definitive expectations, and many times we have to present a plan of the process and its objectives. There's also pressure in the private clinic. There are the patient's demands. There's pressure that derive from us, from our wish to supply a result, granting value. And because of so much pressure, because of so much expectation, sometimes there are cut-offs, or we must cut off creative processes. Exactly where a creative solution could have come from, we are forced to cut because of the feeling that something is expected of us. Einstein says that the solution will always come from a certain awareness that is not at the level of the problem. The solution will come from an awareness that goes beyond the level of the problem. If you stay with the level of the problem, you will not get to the solution. I really hope that this course freed up a space within you to validate yourselves, your intuition, your tools, your creative processes, so that you can exist more and more, both within yourselves and also in the consulting rooms. That is, I hope it supported, in Bion's language, our approach to atonement with O.